Now, throughout the entire Democratic primary, Bernie Sanders and a lot of progressives had called on Hillary Clinton to release the Goldman Sachs transcripts. Well, she didn't, and they eventually got leaked. I've got some of these transcripts for you here. Now, some of these, they were released by WikiLeaks, right? As part of what they say is more than 2,600 emails hacked from Clinton Chairman John Podesta. Now, of course, they haven't actually confirmed nor denied the veracity of these. And usually, if they're fake, they come out and immediately say, no, these are not our emails. These, we didn't write these. We have nothing to do with these. Instead, they're saying the Russians must have altered them. Yeah, of course, blame the Russians, right? Now, in the email published by WikiLeaks, and this is just one of many that have been dropped, Clinton actually tells a real estate industry trade association that she believes that as a public official, quote, you need both a public and private position on major issues. Now, what does that mean to me? Basically, a fake position that you tell the masses and a real position for the people who you actually serve, the donors, of course. Now, there are several different points here that she gave to these in these transcripts, and I'm going to go over them one by one, and starting with trade. Now, Hillary Clinton, of course, now famously opposes the TPP. She came out and said, well, you know what, I supported the TPP, now I don't. No. Okay. Well, now, in the email released by WikiLeaks, she's shown telling a Brazilian bank that, quote, my dream is a hemispheric common market with open trade and open borders. She's also quoted saying, we have to resist protectionism, other kinds of barriers to market access and to trade. I would like to see this get much more attention and be not just a policy for a year under President X or President Y, but a consistent one. Okay, so obviously she seems like she's in favor of more trade. Look, trade's not a bad thing. Trade is actually fine, right? You need to trade with other countries. That's unavoidable. However, what you need to do if you're doing trade is to construct a policy that actually doesn't create incentives for companies to move overseas to exploit what is essentially pretty close to slave labor. For example, you've got people in Vietnam working for something like 13 cents an hour in crowded factories with no safety regulations. People in Bangladesh working the same thing, right? See, that's the kind of trade policy that we're against. We're against our companies going over there and basically employing those workers for incredibly cheap and in dangerous conditions so they can make an extra buck. See, unfortunately, that's what free trade seems to have brought us. Okay? So that's why we're stridently against free trade. We want fair trade, better trade. And until we bring up the rest of our partners, our trading partners, up to that standard, or up to a certain standard, we need some sort of protectionism in our policy. Now, she doesn't seem to be in favor of any of that. She seems to be in favor of, well, I want more, I basically want more types of free trade. Which makes sense that she was in favor of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Now, another point that she talked about was Social Security. Now, on the campaign trail, Clinton said, I'm not going to cut Social Security. Yet, of course, in the email excerpts of her Morgan Stanley speech, she actually praised a commission that was out to cut Social Security benefits. Now, the email shows that Clinton told Morgan Stanley that the Simpson-Bowles Commission put forth the right framework for dealing with fiscal challenges. She also said the Simpson-Bowles framework and the big elements of it were right. What were the big elements? Cutting Social Security, putting in changed CPI, which would, of course, lower your cost of living adjustments every year, which would essentially be a cut. Now, as the Nonpartisan Center on Budget and Policy Priorities reported in 2011, the Commission proposed a plan to cut benefits for the vast majority of Social Security recipients, weaken the link between a recipient's benefits and past earnings, which could undermine public support for the program, and despite the claims of the co-chairs, failed to protect the most low-income workers from benefit cuts. Here we go. Social Security on the table. But see, Social Security is one of the most popular programs that we have. And so every politician, oh no, I'm going to protect Social Security. We're going to save Social Security. We're not going to touch it. We're not going to touch it except when we want to cut it. And that's exactly what it is. Right now, we have the lowest corporate taxes we've ever had in this country in the modern age, right? Why is Social Security on the table? Why did she talk about Social Security? You know how to fix Social Security? Well, first of all, you have to admit that it's not broke. Literally, it's not broke. There's a $2 trillion surplus in the Social Security fund. And we can make it solvent to the end of time. How? You raise the income cap on Social Security. And basically, right now, the Social Security tax applies to about $118,500 of income. That's your cap. Anything over that, you're done. You're done paying. You don't have to pay anymore. So you could make $1 million a year, only pay tax on $118,500 of it, and have that go to Social Security. And even with that cap in place, there's still a $2 trillion surplus. Imagine if you lift that cap. If you lift that cap to $500,000, if you lift that cap to $1 million a year, you could make Social Security solvent for the end of time. But instead of pitching that, she tells Wall Street that, no, we're cool with cutting Social Security benefits and doing a changed CPI because that's the right way to go. I think that's the right way to go. No, that's not the right way to go. That's a terrible way to go. Wall Street. Now, one email shows that in a speech to a securities law firm, she said, I've represented and worked with so many talented principled people who made their living in finance. The email also shows her saying that while she supports some efforts to raise taxes on the financial executives, I represented them and did all I could to make sure that they continued to prosper. Meaning, I had to raise your taxes a little bit, but I really just want to cut your taxes so that you can prosper. Great. Look, bankers, I don't think bankers are bad people, right? It's the system that's broken. You see, most people working in finances are actually good, normal people. Okay, they're not villains, they're not evil. The big problem with it is the system. And corporations, including banks, are set up to make as much money as possible. I'm not saying the CEO can't be an absolute evil prick. For example, the guy that ran Wells Fargo, that essentially created a culture that led to thousands of fake credit card accounts being created in customers' names who never ordered them, who never wanted them. And basically, it was a way for them to make money off fines and fees. That guy's an evil prick. He's kind of an asshole, right? But it's not just him, it's the system that creates these incentives. And the way it's set up to only make money by squeezing as much money as you can out of people, that is created by the system. Now, this leads me to the last excerpt. How do you fix this system? Now, one excerpt in the email shows Clinton suggesting that Wall Street executives are best positioned to write government rules to regulate Wall Street. Basically, what not to do. Self-regulation. Look, you're an idiot if you don't think that people in the position to write rules about their own industry wouldn't write rules that are favorable to them. Of course they would. Of course. They would do so they can meet their fiduciary responsibilities in order to make as much money as possible. And not only that, but there are politicians who pass these rules. Well, they would often get rewarded for passing these rules with jobs on Wall Street. You can't have executives working in the financial industry write financial industry regulations. You can't do that. That's like letting the robbers write laws. Now, speaking of our politicians, well, they haven't done much better, to be honest with you. And that's because of the issue of money in politics. When a bank can just buy our politicians and have them write favorable rules for them, well, you're not going to get good regulation. Look at Dodd-Frank. It's incredibly weak and incredibly watered down. It's ineffective. You got to get the money out of politics if you're going to have politicians that are actually going to write rules that are actually fair and protect consumers and the economy at large. Right now, we don't have that. And we need to get that back. But see, all these points are why she wanted to hide the transcripts in the first place. Basically, it shows that everything that Bernie Sanders said about her working for Wall Street during the primary is 100% true. Now, if only this had come out sooner, well, maybe we would have known earlier who Hillary Clinton actually serves, and we could have gotten a better option. But we don't, and that's where it is. Like bad timing, WikiLeaks. Really. We could have used this months ago. Now, with that said, Hillary Clinton is still likely to win. Look at who she's running against. She's running against a monster who's essentially a not rapist, but very least bragged about doing sexual assault on someone. Jesus. Now, since she is likely to win, and since we know who she is and know who she serves, our job is to fight her on day one. At least that's my job. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent, non-corporate media, go to our Patreon page and become a patron. Patreon.com/TYTNation.